What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the AZ Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Humphreys, and today we're talking Arizona Cardinals. Larry Fitzgerald went into the Hall of Fame. We're talking Arizona Diamondbacks and their phenomenal series victory against the Los Angeles Dodgers. And Dillon Brooks was extended by the Phoenix Suns, all since we last recorded a podcast. Let's get this thing going. I cannot wait. Here we go. First, let's get right into the Arizona Diamondbacks series win. Okay, to break it down real quick, Diamondbacks won game one of the series on Friday against the Los Angeles Dodgers. It came, the Diamondbacks were down 1-0, headed into the ninth inning of this one, I believe it was 2-1. 2-1 in the ninth inning of this one, and then it was Ryan Waldschmidt, who was the hero with the walk-off 2-run home run. Didn't even know it was a home run until he was halfway to second base. A phenomenal story for the young rookie who was one of the most sought-after prospects at the deadline from the Arizona Diamondbacks. So good job of him proving to Mike Hazen and the rest of the team, hey, you guys didn't trade me, and I am here to continue to play good baseball. And that's exactly what he's been doing since he got recalled from AAA in the middle of July. We'll get to more of that later. Saturday, it was a great but low-scoring game. It was 0-0 after the seventh inning. Brandon Pfaadt pitched a gem, 7 innings scoreless against the Los Angeles Dodgers lineup. Are you kidding me? Brandon Pfaadt has been one of the best pitchers in baseball, and we'll get to that in a minute as well. But ultimately, the Diamondbacks lose. They lose in extra innings 2-1. They gave up a home run. Jonathan Loaisiga gave up a home run in the 8th inning, and then in the bottom of the 9th inning, Perdomo tripled. Carroll tripled, which scored Perdomo. But then with no outs and Corbin Carroll on third base, the Diamondbacks could not get Corbin home. They could not get him 90 more feet. And it was Gabriel Moreno. It was Ketel Marte. That those two guys weren't able to get Corbin home. And the Diamondbacks went on to lose in the 10th inning because of an infield single from Shohei Ohtani. A heartbreaker for sure. And honestly, looking at how this series played out, you feel like this Diamondbacks team should have swept. They should have swept. They should have swept the Dodgers for not once, but the second time this season. Incredible. Just incredible. And then on Sunday, we had Eduardo Rodriguez go 7 innings, 2 earned runs. 115 pitches, 9 strikeouts, and what felt like the perfect exclamation point for the Diamondbacks during this series was he went out into the 7th inning after already having thrown 97 pitches, and he went out and pitched another, and he went the full 7th inning, 18 pitches, got Shohei Ohtani out on that very last out of the 7th inning. It was incredible. He put it all on the line, and Torey Lovullo had the stones to send him back out there with Brandon Garcia down. So the only lefty that was active for the Arizona Diamondbacks that day was Eduardo Rodriguez, and he said, you know what? Even though he's at 110 pitches, we're going to let him face Shohei Ohtani, because he's our best bet, even at 110 pitches. And Rodriguez pulled through and got it done. Of course, we also had Ketel Marte hit a 2-run home run in this game from the right side of the plate, which was great. And then the Diamondbacks were able to tack on 2 more runs in that 2nd inning to win this ball game 4-2. There's so much to talk about, and just an hour ago, we learned that Paul Sewald was DFA'd. Yesterday, it was announced that Michael Soroka was back. to being a Diamondback starting pitcher. They play the Rockies in just a few hours right now, and I'm recording this. If you're listening to this later, I'm recording this at about 1:50 p.m. Arizona time. So hopefully some of you guys can watch this before they play their first game against the Rockies tonight, but I'm hoping that what we talk about today will still hold up until Wednesday or Thursday, which is the next time I will be uh breaking down more Arizona sports for you guys. So let's get into the nitty-gritty details of this series and what a series it was. Let's start with the first thing that stuck out to me, and I think the guy who had the best performance in this entire series, which coincidentally came in a loss for this Arizona Diamondbacks team, and it's Brandon Pfaadt right now. Brandon Pfaadt is one of the best pitchers in baseball. He's third in ERA at 1.32 and sixth in pitching WAR since his return from the minor leagues back on June 30th. It cannot be understated how much Brandon Pfaadt has meant to this Diamondbacks team over the last month and a half. He's 6-1 as a starter in those starts and has had a no decision in two others. He has been what we thought Corbin Burnes was going to do for this team when he came back in July. It actually turned out to be Brandon Pfaadt, and credit Dave Burns for kind of putting that together where, we were expecting reinforcements in July. We did not expect we were going to get a Cy Young level Brandon Pfaadt. And right now, after getting that extension in 2024, we're finally seeing that pay off. Mike Hazen is not quick, but Mike Hazen likes to extend guys early because he thinks that in a couple years they will exceed value. For Hazen, that Brandon Pfaadt contract was not looking good last year, and it was not looking good at the end of May when they decided to send him down after being in the bullpen. Credit to Brandon Pfaadt, he kept his head down, he kept working, and he figured it out. And what's great about this for Brandon Pfaadt is that he's inducing way more ground balls than he ever has in his career. His heart hit, and it's not just, this isn't just luck either. His hard hit percentage is as low as it's been throughout his entire career. His accuracy with all of his pitches, he's added a cutter in the last two seasons, and right now he's using a changeup and a curveball a whole lot, and that's helping as well. Plus, we know that he does have, or at least has had, a really good sweeper, and we've seen that even come back recently as well. So Brandon Pfaadt, if you're looking at guys who have helped stabilize this Arizona Diamondbacks team over the last month and a half, I think you start with Brandon Pfaadt, because if the Diamondbacks had to go to another pitcher, whether it's Jose Cabrera or picking up a guy that was designated for assignment recently, if they had to cobble together more innings that Brandon Pfaadt wasn't able to fill, this team would not be in a wild card race like it is right now. And this team wouldn't have fans thinking that if they made the playoffs, that the Diamondbacks could go on a run. Like, because of Brandon Pfaadt, we now believe that if you have Pfaadt, if you have Eduardo Rodriguez, if you have Michael Soroka, who can hopefully get back to being the 3.07 ERA pitcher that he was during the first half of the season, maybe you can get Corbin Burnes back and healthy and ready to go for the playoffs. Maybe not. We'll see how that ends up. Plus, you have Ryan Nelson, who could come back and bolster the bullpen. You have Zach Gallen, who could come back. Merrill Kelly's turned it around recently. Because of this starting pitching staff, the ceiling is the roof, as the great Michael Jordan would say. The ceiling is the roof for this Arizona Diamondbacks team because of what Brandon Pfaadt and Eduardo Rodriguez are doing. The next guy on this list that we have to talk about is Eduardo Rodriguez, and I already kind of broke that down earlier, but again, 115 pitches in a game. Most he's done since 2019. most Tories let a guy go since 2023 when he let Zach Gallen go. I think 110-ish pitches, maybe it was 115. Not sure on that exact stat, but it's been a long time since Torrey made that big of a gamble with a pitcher going over 100 pitches. I mean, Torrey will consistently pull guys out below 100 pitchers. And the other thing too is it was only 7 up and downs too. The more up and downs you get into a ball game, the more Torrey likes to kind of take guys out, even if their pitch count is not as high as you would think. It's also the up and downs and the waiting in between innings that adds into that fact as well. So seeing Torrey throw a guy out there for the 7th inning, not super unsurprising. We've seen him do it a bunch of times this season, especially when guys have it rolling. But what was incredible in this situation is that Erod left guys on base in the top of the 6th inning. Like it wasn't like he had dominated recently. He left guys on base. There was a run that scored in that top of the 6th inning to make it a 4-2 ball game. And Torrey still said, okay, it's the bottom of the order plus Shohei Ohtani. So we're gonna let Erod go out there and get through this inning. And there was one time where Torrey kind of like he was up, he was out of the dugout, and then he was like, I don't know, Jim. I don't know. And then he went back into the dugout and let Eduardo Rodriguez finish it out. And to show that much trust and that much confidence in a guy, even though he's already about to set a career high, or in this case, tie a career high in pitches, unbelievable stones from Torey Lovullo. Unbelievable job by Eduardo Rodriguez. Unbelievable job by the Diamondbacks defense to help their pitcher out and get it done, especially when they weren't able to get it done in that top of the 6th inning, just 1 inning prior. It was so good to see Eduardo get kind of his moment and to prove yet again that he is the man. And this guy owns the Dodgers. If you're on Twitter at all, or now X, you've seen Eduardo Rodriguez has absolutely dominated the Los Angeles Dodgers this season. And honestly, like he's pitched well against them before since he's come to Arizona as well. So this is not a first time thing that we've seen Eduardo Rodriguez play to this level against the Dodgers. Speaking of beating the Dodgers, are the Arizona Diamondbacks Dodgers killers? Because since that 2023 postseason, the Diamondbacks do have a winning record against the Dodgers. This year, after getting swept in the opening series of the season, the Diamondbacks won the last 7 out of their last 10 against the Dodgers to win the final series 7-6, the season series 7-6. And it's not just that. The Dodgers won the first, I believe, 5 games of the season series, which means the Diamondbacks won 6 out of the last, or sorry, they won 7 out of the last 8 games that they played against the Dodgers. Just a ridiculous stat. But it also goes to show that this team, when it's functioning, has the ability to beat this Dodgers team because they play great defense, because they have great starting pitching. Kevin Ginkel came in and got it done. Brandon Garcia came in and got huge outs, especially in that first game. The double play that he got Shohei Ohtani to hit into was great. The Diamondbacks bullpen has held on just good enough this season to get them to this point. We'll see if that continues or not. And there should be, as we're seeing today, there should be reinforcements coming. So can't wait to see what happens there. But yeah, the Diamondbacks have just been Dodgers killers since that opening series against them this season. And even though they're Dodgers killers, they're still 7 or 8 games back of the division. So that's unlikely to happen. For any people in the comments who think I'm saying that the Diamondbacks are a better team than the Dodgers, I definitely don't believe that. But I do believe that the Diamondbacks possess the guys capable and maybe are the most, maybe know the Dodgers the best because they see them so much. Like this team gets to see the Dodgers 13, 14 times a season and have during this entire dynasty. Plus, they beat them in 20. They were the last team to beat the Dodgers in a playoff series. They were. They were the last team to beat the Dodgers in a playoff series. So, as good as the Dodgers are, maybe their kryptonite is a team that knows them very well and that has pitched against them numerous times. I mean, Merrill Kelly's pitched against the Dodgers many times. He struggled at the beginning, but in this series, he went 5 2/3 innings and allowed 1 earned run. Eduardo Rodriguez has pitched well against the Dodgers. We saw Brandon Pfaadt shove last year against the Dodgers, and he was having a down season. Maybe this team has just played the Dodgers so many times that it knows the formula to beating the Dodgers. Now, can they always execute that formula? And do I think that there's a little bit of that NBA mentality right now with this Dodgers team where, they're kind of just coasting through the regular season and then they'll turn it on when the playoffs start? Yeah, I think there's a strong case that that's exactly what the Dodgers are doing is, and they know like, hey, we're good in the division, so like we don't need to like go all out 100 miles an hour pushing up to the highest gear. Like they might just be in gear 3 or 4 right now, and the Diamondbacks, because they're in this wild card race and it's essentially going to be playoff baseball. I mean, the Diamondbacks have to play playoff baseball for the next month and a half, a little more than a month and a half before they even make the playoffs because this wild card race is going to be so tight. So the Diamondbacks beat LA. They're the Dodgers killers because they have the guys on the roster that can get it done, that have seen this team over and over and over again. If they meet in the playoffs, am I picking the Diamondbacks? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Unless, Shohei Ohtani is on the IL, on the shelf. And even then, I don't know if I'm picking the Diamondbacks just because of how loaded that the rest of that Dodgers lineup and their pitching staff is. Diamondbacks obviously got lucky and didn't have to face Tariq Skubal, although we did face Yamamoto and we did face Robleski, who was an all-star this year. Doesn't look like an all-star pitcher right now, but he was an all-star this year. Like the Diamondbacks still faced some strong pitching, and their pitching was just as good, and most of the time better against the Dodgers in this series and in the last series, which the Diamondbacks swept right before the All-Star break. So let's turn it over to the offense, and I think we have to start with Ryan Waldschmidt. And like I mentioned at the top of the podcast, Ryan Waldschmidt has proved Mike Hazen right this week. Right. Excuse me. Let me restart. Ryan Waldschmidt proved Mike Hazen right this weekend when he hit the game-winning walk-off home run against the Dodgers on Friday. Since his return to the major league roster, which happened on July 10th, Waldschmidt is hitting .328 with a .492 slugging percentage, which for my math nerds out there is an .820 OPS. Really, really good. And Waldschmidt is doing it in a unique way as well. He only has a walk rate, a 2.9 walk rate, and has a 27.9 strikeout rate. And he is hitting an insane .429 on balls batted into play. So that's way, way, way above average on balls batted into play for Waldschmidt. But I think, and do I expect this number to hold throughout the rest of the season and in his career? I don't. He needs to stop striking out as much. He needs to put more balls in play. He has one of the highest strikeout rates on the team. He needs to walk. He needs to get a lot more walks. Like we need that strikeout percentage to get down to 20, and we need that walk percentage to get up to 7 to 10, ideally. Like we need those areas to improve for him to truly become like a really good major league player. And the .429 batted balls in play, I think is just he really knows how to hit the ball and where to put the ball. And when he gets a barrel on a ball, he's sending it in the right direction. Like he's not just a always pull side hitter. Now he is a pull side hitter for sure, but like he's a guy that understands how to put the ball in play and get on base doing that. So it's really impressive what he's done. Has definitely been the catalyst to the Diamondbacks offense at the bottom of the order, as well as Tim Tawa, who had an incredible series against the Padres, as well as James McCann, who uh, had one of the longest RBI streaks in Diamondbacks history, actually tied it before that came to an end against the Padres. Gabriel Moreno's been awesome. Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte have been sputtering recently, but hopefully the triple on Saturday for Corbin and the home run on Sunday for Ketel can get those two guys going. That would be really nice to see. But the guy that I think could have maybe the best stretch to end the season is going to be Geraldo Perdomo. Just in August, he's hitting 389 in 9 games. He's also hit a few home runs going back to the end of July. But in July, he hit 175. Wasn't great. He is, top 10 in walks in Major League Baseball this year, which is just something that Perdomo does. He's really good at getting on base, even when it's, having to manufacture a single or a walk. He's really, really good at that. But I think Perdomo is going to have one of the best months of his career in August, and that might continue into September. I think Perdomo is peaking at the right time, and when we look in a few weeks from now, we're going to say, man, we've seen Marte carry us in stretches this year. We've seen Corbin Carroll carry us in stretches. Most recently, we've seen Gabriel Moreno carry the Diamondbacks. And now I think it's going to be Perdomo's turn. I think Perdomo for the next 6 weeks is going to be the Diamondbacks' best offensive player, as well as, honestly, their best defensive player. What he's doing at shortstop this year, he's one of the best defensive shortstops in baseball. And if he's able to start mashing the ball like I think Perdomo's about to start mashing the ball, I think this Diamondbacks team is not only going to make the playoffs, I think they're going to finish second in that wild card race. I think they finished second. I think that they, right now, assuming that some of the guys come back healthy, like Jordan Lawler and Justin Martinez can come back healthy, I think this team has the pieces to be the second wild card team. And then with that, they'll play the Cubs most likely in a playoff series. We'll get to see the Cubs at the end of the month. So that'll be a good preview of what could happen, as well as the Phillies. And we'll see the Padres again as well. So a lot of teams in the wild card spot with us. We're going to get to see the Diamondbacks play against a lot of these wild card teams to end the season. And I truly believe that this Diamondbacks team, if Lawler can come back healthy, if Martinez can come back healthy, if they can get Corbin Burns and Ryan Nelson back at least somewhat available for this team before the end of the season, I think this team has a really, really great shot at making a special postseason run. Does that postseason run get sniffed out by the Dodgers or the Braves or the Brewers? It could. It definitely could. It could be short. It could just be 2 games and all of a sudden we're at home after losing in the wild card and we go, man, what a season, but what a rough way to end. Or we could up in the conference championship again. We could be playing for a pennant. I truly believe that this team has that kind of ceiling. And I hope that they prove me right. And with that said, let's break down the Diamondbacks chase to the wild card right now. Right now, they're 63. They have a record. Right now, the Diamondbacks have a 63-56 record and are tied for the Phillies in the second spot in the wild card. The Padres are just outside the wild card, 1 game back of the D-backs and Phillies, losing that last game in that Padres series really hurt, really hurt. But those three teams that are all within a game of each other are five to 6 games back of the Cubs, but have a 3.5 game lead over the Marlins and teams like the Cardinals and the Nationals and the Pirates. All have been trending down since the trade deadline or slightly before the trade deadline, part of and thanks to the Diamondbacks beating them. But a lot of these teams have been trending down except for the Padres, Phillies, and Diamondbacks. So right now it's a 3-horse race for 2 spots. And both the Phillies and the Padres went out and got some guys at the trade deadline. Now, whether those guys pan out, we'll see. Robbie Ray did not pitch well in his first appearance. I'm sorry, I can't remember who the other pitcher was against the Diamondbacks that they traded for. He did not pitch well. He did not pitch well against the Diamondbacks in his first performance, where the Diamondbacks had him out of the game before the end of the 4th inning. So, and then the Padres went out and added Luis Ariz. The Phillies defense isn't great. We'll see what happens there. Their offense is really good, and at times they have really, really great pitching. So the Diamondbacks did not add anyone of note outside of Lars Nootbaar at the trade deadline, and that was definitely the least sexy move of the trade deadline, probably. Although it might just be good for the Diamondbacks because they just got a left-hander that can actually play in the postseason instead of Max Kepler and a guy who can get on base a little bit better than Kepler can. But they have Jordan Lawler coming back. They have Corbin Burns coming back. I mean, I'm just going to keep saying it. They have Justin Martinez coming back. They don't have AJ Putt coming back. They just signed Zach Littell, who probably slots in as a long arm guy out of the bullpen, where maybe the Diamondbacks have another high leverage guy in that. We've seen Gerardo Carrillo be like a high leverage guy, and they picked him off the street. He wasn't even wearing a Diamondbacks uniform 2 weeks ago. And this guy has at least 1 save, maybe 2 saves for the Diamondbacks. And they bring him in against in some high leverage situations, like in the 8th inning and in the 9th inning and in extra innings. Like, this is a guy that they're relying on, and they didn't even have him on the roster 2 weeks ago. So Hazen, to his credit, has kind of like gotten guys to come in and play great baseball. And if the reinforcements can come back anytime soon, it's only going to help this team. All right. We're almost done with the baseball talk. I know it's been a half hour of Diamondbacks baseball talk, and we're almost done, I promise. We just have 3 more things to get to. First, let's start with what just happened about an hour ago. And it's that the Arizona Diamondbacks designated Paul Sewald for assignment. And Paul Sewald has had one of the weirder careers in an Arizona sports uniform that I can remember. At his best, he was one of the best closers in baseball. In 2023, he was a huge reason why the Diamondbacks made the World Series. He was also a big reason why they lost the World Series. In 2024, Paul Sewald was one of the best closers in baseball for the first half of the season. And then in the month of July, the bottom fell out on him. And he didn't pitch much more for the rest of the season. He leaves Arizona in 2025, goes to, I think it was Cleveland, but it might have been Detroit. But he leaves, barely plays due to injury, and then comes back on a minor league deal. And all of a sudden, after spring training, we looked up and oh my gosh, Paul Sewald was Paul Sewald was the Arizona Diamondbacks closer in the year 2026. We couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe that we went back to the Paul Sewald well. And guess what? Mike Hazen and Torey Lovullo looked like geniuses for the first 3 months this season. The guy was 24 of 27 in his save opportunities. Not a few years ago. This year, he was 24 of 27 in his save opportunities. I mean, that's 8 out of every 9 save opportunities. That's well over 80%. Well over 80%. Paul Sewald was getting saves. And then all of a sudden in July again, and in early August, the bottom just fell out, and it felt like he couldn't get any guys out. He couldn't get a guy out. Like the Diamondbacks DFA'd him, and he had over a 6 ERA. Over a 6, and this guy was 24 of 27 in save opportunities. And it wasn't, and he did trend down a little bit, but for the most part, Paul went from, man, really good. And then, there were a few cracks in the dam in June, but you were like, oh, Torey just should never play him in a non-save situation. But then the home runs started to pile up. He would give up runs, but still get the save. And it felt like in a week and a half, Paul Sewald went from being the closer to being out of the rotation. I mean, it's just crazy. And this is exactly what happened in 2024. Torey stuck with Paul a whole lot longer that season than he did this year, thank goodness. But the bottom just fell out from underneath him. And there was, maybe there were warning signs, maybe there weren't. His velo hasn't gone down significantly. Maybe there's a little bit, maybe his pitches aren't carrying as much as they were at the beginning of the season, but overall there's no like real telltale sign as to why all of a sudden teams went from not being able to hit Paul Sewald to all of a sudden teams are treating Paul Sewald like it's batting practice. I mean, Paul Sewald went from closer to batting practice 2 times in his Arizona Diamondbacks career. Twice. And it felt like it happened overnight. Overnight. I don't know how to explain it. Baseball is one of these weird things that you can't explain. All of a sudden, a guy goes from being unhittable to being batting practice. And Paul Sewald did that twice. And I don't know what's going to happen. I like Paul Sewald. I like Paul Sewald a lot. Like, I think he's a great guy. I think he's been great for the organization. I think he's represented the Diamondbacks extremely well. The milkman, or sorry, that's Gown. Like jump around, like when Paul Sewald came out to that, like that was like, there's so much to appreciate about Paul Sewald, but at the same time, when the wheels fall off for this guy, I mean, they fall off, and it's hard to repair. And so, yeah, I saw a headline on X that it was inevitable. Like, it was inevitable that he was going to get DFA'd just because he just couldn't get anyone out anymore. He just couldn't get anyone out. It was unfortunate to see. We'll see what happens. If he clears waivers, maybe they re-sign him to a minor league deal and he works things out in AAA, and maybe I don't even want to say the words out loud, but Pavin Smith is back playing for AAA Reno. Maybe there's a chance we see Pavin Smith again on the Diamondbacks this year. I don't know if that's going to happen, but there is a chance. And if Paul Sewald clears waivers and the Diamondbacks do re-sign him and they try and help him fix whatever's going wrong, and they feel like they fixed it just like they did with Brandon Pfaadt, I don't know. Maybe Paul Sewald has come to the end of the road of his career. Maybe he still has another stint left with the Diamondbacks. It's going to be crazy to see. It's going to be, I don't have the words because I appreciate him, but I'm also glad that anxiety is out of my life. Okay, So, sorry about that. Last thing before I finish this Diamondback segment is, sorry, give me a sec. Okay, let's get into maybe the one negative. Let's get into the one negative that I have for this Diamondbacks team right now, and that is what Mike Hazen did during this offseason. Now, he did a few good things. Traded for Nolan Arenado, who's been a huge success. Brought in Paul Sewald, who got 24 out of 27 saves. Brought in Michael Soroka on a tryout deal, essentially, and he's been great. But the two things that he did, and the main one that causes me to get irrationally angry, is that he traded Jake McCarthy. And this is pertinent because the Diamondbacks play the Colorado Rockies for the next 3 days. And Jake McCarthy had a historic night recently where he had 4 hits, 2 home runs, 2 stolen bases. Right now, McCarthy is 17th among all players this season in OPS at 859, and he is first among all left fielders. Now, would he get the everyday reps in the outfield if he was still playing for the Diamondbacks this season? Maybe not. But if McCarthy was hitting this good for the Diamondbacks, I'll tell you what, he sure would have earned them. But the problem is that the Diamondbacks came into the season and they were hoping for yet again another Alek Thomas turnaround. They were hoping eventually Alek Thomas could figure it out. The signs were there that he just wasn't going to be able to do that. The Diamondbacks said, hey, we need a left-handed hitter in our lineup. And they went with Pavin Smith over Jake McCarthy. Jake McCarthy would be great to have in the DH spot or as an everyday left fielder. Heck, he played center field for the Diamondbacks. And so, yeah, maybe Ryan Waldschmidt and Tommy Troy don't have the seasons that they have. But I tell you what, would you rather have an 860 OPS Jake McCarthy on this team right now or anything else that the Diamondbacks have put in the outfield this entire season outside of Corbin Carroll? And I'll tell you what, Jake McCarthy, I would 100% have picked him. I would have picked him over Alek Thomas. I would take him over Pavin Smith. I would have taken him over Blaze Alexander, and I love Blaze Alexander's defense. He was fun to watch as well, and I'm disappointed that we traded him so quickly as well. If the Diamondbacks had Jake McCarthy, there's no telling to how special this offense could have been. And what was so disappointing is, yeah, he did have a down 2025 season. But in 2022 and 2024, he had great seasons. He had great seasons in 2022 and 2024. I mean, in 2024, he was one of the Diamondbacks' best hitters for most of the season. He was awesome in 2024. And so, just sucks. So, if the Diamondbacks do fail at the end of the season, that's going to be when we look at this season, and if it's not as successful as we want it to be as Diamondbacks fans, the place I go to first might be injuries, but everyone has injuries. The place I go to first will be, why did we trade away Jake McCarthy when we could have kept him and gotten rid of guys like Alek Thomas and Pavin Smith? It was just an absolute steal from the Colorado Rockies what they did to Mike Hazen. And it's the type of move that, in my opinion, can make it so that your job is in hot water at the end of the year, especially if the Diamondbacks, again, are on the outside looking in at the playoffs. Okay. Let's get to the Phoenix Suns. All right. Over the past week, Dillon Brooks signed a 3-year, $73 million contract extension with the Phoenix Suns, locking him in with the team through the 2029-2030 season. This is what Brian Gregory said about it. Dillon's toughness, competitiveness, and work ethic epitomize our Suns' DNA, said GM Brian Gregory. He plays with a drive and intensity that sets the tone for our team and raises the level of everyone around him. Dillon was an important part of what we accomplished last season, and we're excited to see him continue to grow as a player while building on the connection he's established with our fans and the Phoenix community. Dillon last year averaged 20.2 points on 43.5 shooting, 3.6 rebounds, and 1 steal in 56 games. He averaged 26 points on 46% from the field and 3.5 makes from beyond the arc and 6 rebounds in 4 games against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Um, and in 5 of his last 6 seasons, he's helped his team reach the playoffs. So, was it an absolute win for the Suns to trade for Dillon Brooks for Kevin Durant? It absolutely was, because it shifted the culture of this organization that it so desperately needed. But here's the thing with guys like Dillon Brooks. We've seen some guys, wear out their welcome as well, like Jay Crowder, Raja Bell. Those are guys that come to mind where they played with that same kind of edge that Brooks had, but eventually all the drama and all that edge that comes with it eventually became too much for the Suns organization to deal with. And they decided to trade those guys before their contracts were fully fulfilled. And so Dillon Brooks, yes, he is 30 years old. He'll be 34 by the time this deal ends, maybe 35, depending on where his birthday lines up. And so I do think that there's a lot of good basketball left for Brooks. But if there is any decline and he doesn't have the same type of scoring season that he had this year, or he isn't able to play as well defensively as he did this year at age 33 and at age 34, this could be a contract that the Suns might be trading in a few seasons because he just becomes too problematic for the organization. It's what happened in Memphis. It didn't happen in Houston, but it did happen in Memphis, where eventually they got tired of the Dillon Brooks experience. Now, it seems like this organization is all in on the Dillon Brooks experience. But if you ever come to a point where you're not all in on the Dillon Brooks experience, then it becomes very disruptive for your team, for your organization, for your locker room very quickly. Those are the risks, but the rewards far outweigh the risks, because Dillon is the leader of this team. It's been said by everyone top to bottom. Devin Booker, Jordan Ott, Brian Gregory, Matt Ishbia, all those guys heap praise on Dillon for the type of work ethic, the type of attitude, the type of emotional force that this team needs. That credit all goes to Dillon Brooks. So you needed to keep this guy. You had to keep this guy. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And you had to make this guy happy. You had to make this guy feel like he's beloved in Phoenix, because he is. He's beloved by fans and he's beloved by his teammates. And so this extension was a no-brainer. Paying a guy 21, $22 million a year for close to all-star production. Now we'll see if that continues over the next few years, or if he is forced to take a back seat with Miles Bridges coming in and Jalen Green hopefully being healthy for full seasons. Plus the Miles Bridges extension maybe around the corner. We'll find out. With Dillon, like, is he going to be okay being the fourth banana next year? We'll see. But as of right now, the way that this roster is constructed, the Suns absolutely need Dillon Brooks for what he provides as a leader, for the type of edge that he brings. The Suns need that to be competitive in a very difficult Western Conference. Now, does this move mean that they're going to be a 50-win team next year and be a top 4 seed in the playoffs? I don't think so. I think they kind of stay right where they're at. Hopefully they can move their way into the 6th or the 5th seed this season. And there's definitely opportunities for them to climb, especially if this Miles Bridges trade works. But as you've seen from guys like Kellen Olson and others, like there are definitely question marks on how this team acclimates around Devin Booker because Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, Miles Bridges, all these guys appear to be score first guys. And even Booker at times in his career has been a score first guy as well. So you have 4 score first guys, 3 that play well in isolation. I mean, Jalen Green, well, may be an overstatement, but Dillon did great in isolation situations. Devin Booker, we know, is one of the game's best scorers in isolation. Miles Bridges isn't as much of an isolation as an ISO player, but when he has the ball, he's thinking score. He can play make a little bit. So Dillon is going to have to be a lot more glue guy next year potentially, and be better at making the one more pass, making those types of plays that the 4th and 5th best guys on the roster make. Dillon's going to have to be that guy. And we'll see if he can do it. I think he can. I think that Dillon's a really smart basketball player and knows his role and will fill in the gaps wherever he needs to help his team win. All right. I shouldn't have missed the podcast last week or last Thursday, but even though I did, like most of this stuff happened after Thursday. So this was always going to be a very long podcast, but let's get to the Arizona Cardinals and Larry Fitzgerald's Hall of Fame speech. And before I start with what he said in his Hall of Fame speech, I want to start with his thank you to Arizona sports fans because, look, Larry Fitzgerald was raised by a sports journalist, so it's no surprise that he's very well spoken and very well written. And I loved this full page ad he took out in the Arizona Republic thanking fans for his Hall of Fame career. Thank you, Arizona. People have asked me countless times what it felt like to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The truth is, it was one of the greatest honors of my life. But this really isn't a Hall of Fame story, it's a thank you letter. I arrived in Arizona as a 20-year-old kid who didn't know a single person. I had no idea this desert would become the place that would shape me into the man I am today. The day I landed was the same day the nation learned Pat Tillman had lost his life. Pat is one of America's great heroes. I stepped off the plane into a state where its people were carrying real grief, and something inside me grew quiet. I started paying attention. You learn quickly what loyalty looks like when it isn't just a word. For the next 17 seasons, I quietly measured myself against the standard Pat Tillman set. I'm still not sure I ever lived up to it. Somewhere along the way, Arizona stopped being the place where I lived and became the place where I was from. It happened through 1,000 ordinary moments until one day I realized this was simply home. Not because I was a Hall of Famer, not because I was a wide receiver, just because the people of this state allowed me to be Larry. You don't fall in love with a place because of its stadiums. You fall in love on a quiet morning hiking Camelback Mountain. On crisp fall afternoons walking a golf course, during summers in Flagstaff, standing among the red rocks of Sedona that remind you just how small you are in the best possible way. When I stopped playing football, I walked away quietly. I'm known for my Irish goodbyes. Arizona even gave me that. Yet you kept showing up for me anyway, especially through the work of my foundation. Your support was never conditional. You never asked me to be anything other than myself, and somehow that was always enough. Arizona gave a kid from Minneapolis something he didn't even know he was searching for: belonging. And that sense of belonging changed me. After a while, you weren't cheering for a wide receiver anymore. You were cheering for one of your own. So this isn't really a story about 17 seasons in a Cardinals uniform or a bronze bust in Canton. It's a story of a young man who was welcomed by a state that owed him nothing and gave him everything. Thank you, Arizona. Thank you for letting a kid from somewhere else become one of your own. Thank you for embracing not just the player, but the man. You gave me far more than a career. You gave me friendships that will last a lifetime. You gave me purpose beyond football. You gave me a place where my children will always know they belong. Most of all, you gave me a home. With love and gratitude, Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, just reading that alone, just reading that alone speaks volumes to who Larry Fitzgerald was as a person and as a player. And here's what I'll say about Larry Fitzgerald. He is the best athlete in Arizona sports history. He stayed with the Cardinals his entire career and embodied professionalism in a way that very few athletes in professional sports have ever been able to do it. Even when the Cardinals were down, he could have asked for trades, and honestly, we don't know if he did or not. But it doesn't seem like it, and I think Larry would be honest if he had. Larry was a guy who wanted to be in Arizona his whole career. Larry was a guy like many people who go to Arizona. He was a transplant, but he found a home. He found a place that he could call home. Even when Larry had a Hall of Fame quarterback or close to that, Larry always made the playoffs. And he consistently made plays on the biggest stage. I don't have to remind you, or I shouldn't have to remind you, of what he did in 2008 on the way to the Super Bowl. I shouldn't have to remind you about one of the greatest games ever played when Larry Fitzgerald put Arizona on his back to beat the Green Bay Packers against Aaron Rodgers to make it to the NFC Conference Championship game. When the lights were the brightest, Larry made his biggest plays against the Packers, against the Steelers, against the Panthers, against the Eagles, against the Falcons. That's who Larry was. He also still continued to ball out even when Max Hall and Kevin Kolb were guys throwing him passes. What's also great about Larry is that he was himself. He's a quirky guy. He still hasn't said the word retirement. If you watched his or listened to his interview on Pardon My Take, he refuses to say that he retired. He didn't go out with he didn't go out with a retirement journey. He didn't go out with a last dance. He went away quietly. He just disappeared in 2020. We didn't know where he was. Well, all we knew is that he wasn't playing football. And I'm sure Larry kind of enjoyed giving the NFL an Irish goodbye. Larry's also inspirational for not just what he did on the field, but how he's dealt with loss in his life off the field. When he was at Pittsburgh, he had to deal with the loss of his mom and teammate. And just months ago, Larry Fitzgerald Sr. passed away. And so neither of his parents were there for what should have been the greatest day of Larry Fitzgerald Jr.'s life. I can't possibly imagine what the emotions that he felt over the past few months with it being announced he was getting into the Hall of Fame, which obviously was going to happen. That was a no-brainer. But then to losing his father, to having both of his parents not there for a day that he said he never even thought it was possible, but probably a day he dreamt of for most of his football life was putting on a gold jacket, being one of the best in the sport, being one of the best wide receivers of all time. Yes, he's second in yards, he's second in receptions, and he's sixth in touchdowns in NFL history. But it's way more than just the stats, because he represented Arizona and the Cardinals organization as well, and the state of Arizona, as well as any professional athlete has in the history of Arizona sports. All right, now let's have some fun. What did I think of Larry Fitzgerald's bust? I give it a C+. Uh, I don't look. I'm no artist, but it should be easier to make these bronze busts than it is. I don't know if we just need to create an AI machine that can make a lifelike bust, but time and time again for these athletes, these these statues and busts that they make look very, very poor compared to what the actual athlete looks like. Now, part of that is that some of these bronze busts are made um, after players what they look like at the beginning of their career, and not at the end, not when they're standing up there. So that there is a difference there, but I just think as a society, making more realistic bronze bust is something that we should be able to have accomplished at this point, but still haven't been able to do. I also think, and maybe he's the only guy in NFL history that deserves this, but I do think that there should be a bronze bust made of his butt. Because, man, that is one of the thickest players in NFL history, maybe in the history of the world. So, Larry Fitzgerald, Hall of Fame player, Hall of Fame butt. All right, let's get to some current NFL. Sorry. Let's get to some current NFL Arizona Cardinals news, and that's Carson Beck's Hall of Fame game. Carson Beck went 15 of 19, had a touchdown pass, had some great deep balls. Carson Beck looked exactly, I think, met expectations or slightly exceeded expectations of what I thought he was going to do in the Hall of Fame game. Look, he's going against a defense that has been together for a week. He's going against a defense, and I think it was kind of talked about on the broadcast where both of these defensive coordinators and coaches were like, hey, we're just going to play base. And so, as far as reading defenses, Carson, they were definitely giving Carson an easy pre-test. They weren't giving him the final exam like Carson's going to see on a week in and a week out basis in the NFL. He was definitely taking an easier quiz than what the NFL game is going to look like. We also didn't see him with any of the ones, so we don't know what his chemistry would even look like if he was playing with Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., Mike Wilson. But he did have some great passes, and he showed why he was a projected first-round pick at one point in his college career, why the Cardinals were so high on drafting him with the first pick in the third round. Carson is a guy that I think can be an NFL starting quarterback one day. I don't know if I'll say he's ever going to break into the top 10, heck, even the top 15, but I think there's a good chance, especially with the amount of football Carson's played in college, that he can come in, he can learn an NFL system, and he can be an average NFL quarterback pretty quickly. He doesn't have the Baker Mayfield, I can throw it 70 yards arm strength, but he has good arm strength. He showcased that in college. And I think the more removed we get from that elbow injury he suffered back at Georgia, the stronger his arm is going to look even now. Like, I think his arm can still has a little bit of a ways to go to get back to being as strong as it can possibly be. I honestly thought his best pass was his last pass that ended up being an incompletion on a fourth down in the second half. I mean, he showed no signs of lacking aggression. He threw it deep down the field. The receiver got both hands on it and just wasn't able to make a play. And obviously, he had a couple other deep balls to 86 who came down with them as well. The receiver had quite a bit of separation, but on that last pass and on a couple of the other passes, like the touchdown pass to the back, he put that right on the money low where the back could get it and kind of slide into the end zone underneath the Panthers players. And then he had one over the middle as well. That was a beautifully placed ball as well. So Carson Beck definitely impressed, but he's going to have to play a whole of a lot better for me to want to see him start in September. There's still a long ways to go. But unfortunately for the Cardinals, reports are right now is that Jacoby Brissett hasn't been playing very well in practice so far. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we see Carson Beck as Arizona's starting quarterback earlier than we thought. To end the podcast and to kind of cap off my tribute to Larry Fitzgerald, I'm going to give a top 5 list of Valley Sports Hall of Famers. Here are the top 5 Valley Sports Hall of Famers. 1, Larry Fitzgerald. 2, Steve Nash. 3, Randy Johnson. 4, Luis Gonzalez. You can debate the top 4, but that's a clear top 4, and that is the Mount Rushmore of Arizona sports. You can argue Barkley. You can argue Kurt Warner potentially. You could argue Amari Stoudemire, who is a personal favorite of mine. One day Devin Booker will easily be on that list. Hopefully Corbin Carroll's on that list. And one day Carson Beck could be on that list. Or Jeremiah Love. Or Marvin Harrison Jr. Anquan Bolden's a guy that maybe should get a little bit of consideration as well. For my 5th spot, I'm going with Amari Stoudemire because the Nash and Stoudemire pick and roll is what made me fall in love with basketball. It's going to be different for everyone. If you grew up in the 90s, you'll probably say Barkley's in that 5th spot. If you're, a young kid watching this, if you're 12 years old watching this, you might not understand. Booker's not yet in the Hall of Fame. He will be. And when he is, he might be 1. But it's going to come down to him and Fitz. Fitz is number 1. Nash is number 2. Randy's number 3. Gonzo's number 4. To me, Stoudemire's number 5 because I'm just going off of personal preference. So, there you have it. The top 5 Valley Sports Hall of Famers. From yours truly, Kevin Humphreys. Thank you guys so much for watching this podcast. I hope you'll like and subscribe to this video for more Arizona sports content. And I will see you next time. Go Diamondbacks. Go Cardinals. Go Suns.